I want to show you how to make DoorDash and other similar gig food delivery apps your business on this segment of the Gig Geezer. If this is your first time checking out the Gig Geezer, if you're a returning visitor of the Gig Geezer, hey, thanks for coming by. And if you would not mind, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. Well, if anyone's checked out segments of the Gig Geezer, I've often said how you need to treat what you do with DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, and the like as a business. And when you treat it as a business, you get business-like results. Now, when I've often said that, I've said it really about the mental aspect of going about things, and the mentality of going about doing a business is a transition that you make from being a W-2 to a 1099, a self-employed business person. Now, some may say it's an acquired taste. It may just be. Some may say it's a natural evolution. Some may say that it's a difficult process. Well, I'll give you that much. But it can be done, and it should be done. But I also want to establish that I'm no different than anyone else. I started out in the gig economy in September 2016. And as I've shared, I began with rideshare doing Uber and eventually Lyft. Now, earlier that year, I had also transitioned from having been a captive insurance agent to where I had actually started my own agency. And one of the first and most important things that I did was not so much establishing the agency name, it was getting my errors and omissions insurance, because as an agent, you can't do anybody's business without errors and omissions insurance. Some may call it general liability, but there's general liability, and then there's errors and omissions. There's what they call professional liability, and I had to have that type of insurance. The next thing, which really got the ball rolling for me, occurred a few months later, and that was securing office space, because in property and casualty, you cannot operate from your home. You can do that if you're doing health and life insurance, but with property and casualty, they want to see you in an actual brick and mortar location. And so as I'm doing this segment of the Gig Geezer, I'm actually in the parking lot to where my office is. And I've shown in a past Gig Geezer segment where I've gone to my office to check on if there's any mail or money that should have been slid under my door. In fact, here's the thumbnail to that segment of the Gig Geezer. Now, in that time, I also registered my agency name as a sole proprietorship here in South Carolina with the Secretary of State. That transaction was $145.50. And that particular move right there proved to be just as important as the other two moves that I made. Now, I will talk about that very shortly. I'll explain why that was an important move very shortly. The next important move that I made as an insurance agent occurred in 2019 when I partnered up with what we call a managing general agent. When you're a small agency like myself and you haven't built up $1 million plus book of business, although I had done it in life and health, I have not done it in property and casualty. My book of business has been maybe a couple $100,000, and I'm okay with that. But when you don't have the volume of book of business, and you're trying to write business, you're trying to get contracts with certain carriers, the best way you go about doing that is aligning yourself with a managing general agent, and they usually have access to the places that you need to, and you can do it without having to meet certain production requirements on an annual basis. All that is to say, as a part of me partnering up with them, I had to change my agency name from being strictly as a sole proprietorship to creating an LLC, Limited Liability Corporation. And in doing so, there are certain advantages of having one, but that's not the true intent of me doing this segment of the Gig Geezer. And by the way, if you like the content that's been provided in this segment of the Gig Geezer or in any other segment of the Gig Geezer, hit that subscribe button. Give my content a thumbs up. Share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. The reason why it is important to set up a business name with your state, or establish a business name with your state, or register your business name with the state, be it a sole proprietorship, strictly sole proprietorship, or as an LLC, is because it opens the door for you to make certain business transactions. And what I mean by that is, I've often shared with folk that what you need to do is open business checking account, or open 2 business checking accounts. And the reason for that is, what you want to have is have money, an account for money going in, an account for money going out. But the other reason for having a business checking account is because it separates your business money from your personal money. You don't want to get that muddled up. And the other advantages of that is, if you're looking to make certain transactions, like you want to show proof of income for renting a place, or buying a home, or buying a vehicle. Well, if you can go straight to your business checking account where your money's coming in, then you will be able to show, probably very consistently, proof of income. As I shared in this segment of the Gig Geezer, this is back in July when I moved into another place. I had to show proof of making at least 3 times my rent. Some places require you make 4 times your rent. And so my having this income going into a business checking account made it a lot easier. In fact, also, when you have an account for money going out, you can actually use that as a means of keeping up with your expenses for doing your gig delivery work. Now, there are some points that I feel that are, now, I've been talking for several minutes. I've shared already 2 important points as far as registering a name, as registering what you do as a sole proprietorship. I've also shared that you can do it as a sole proprietorship or LLC. I've also shared that you need to establish 2 business checking accounts, and that depends on, and whichever financial institution you go to. What you'll also need to do is, they're going to ask you, do you have papers on this business? Basically, articles of incorporation. In my case, when I opened my last 2 checking accounts, I had to show my agency license, my personal license, and my articles of incorporation that were through the state of South Carolina, and I was able to open my business checking accounts with that bank. The first place that I did it, all I had to do was actually what I did was, I took the guy to the Department of Insurance website, showed my agency name, and then by implication showed proof, okay, that I had to be licensed to do what I was doing. My agency was licensed as well, or registered at that. By implication showed agency licensing and my personal licensing as an agent, but also proof that my actual agency existed. So that's what I did the first time. But the second time, they asked for the paperwork, and it doesn't hurt to have that type of paperwork with you, because down the road you may need to show that paperwork for some other type of things that you may do as a business person. So now what I want to do is transition into some other more important stuff, more nitty-gritty stuff. Part of doing business, part of making DoorDash your business, or similar apps as your business, what you need to do is invest in yourself. How do you invest in yourself? When you're doing gig delivery work, it's not good showing up just as you are, okay? Because people remember how you show up at places. And I should say this for those who are serious about what they're doing. I don't believe showing up with those little flimsy DoorDash or Grubhub bags. Those things look like little lunch bags, but they're flimsy. I don't believe that those are that's a good sign. What I mean by investing in yourself is purchase your own delivery bags. Purchase your own solid colored delivery bags, and you can buy those on two places, as you see on here on the screen. One is Amazon, and the other is webstaurant.com. Between the two places, you can find some decent quality bags. In fact, if you actually look closely, you'll notice that the same type of bags that are used, that you can purchase from DoorDash or what have you, these are the same places that you can get them, but without the logo on them. The cost of those bags are going to run anywhere between $16 to $35. Another thing that you want to do in investing in yourself is buying cup holders. I cannot count how many times I've seen drivers talk about they hate having orders with drinks. Well, because they probably don't have cup holders. And admittedly, this happened on my first few DoorDash deliveries because I didn't have any and I didn't know any better. In fact, by the way, my first 3 DoorDash deliveries, my rating was a 2.33, and probably for good reason. Well, one of those deliveries I tried to make was I put the food bag and the drink all in the same bag. That was not a good decision. I also recall early on when I tried to use the restaurant cup holders and I had to hit the brakes, those drinks toppled over in the front seat. And so investing in your own cup holders, well, guess what? You actually reduce the likelihood of stuff spilling in your vehicle. Now, how much they cost? On average between $15 and $20, but it's a sound investment. Depending on what you do, if you are doing Instacart or you do other gig delivery apps that involve catering orders, I strongly recommend investing in a cart, some type of hand cart. It certainly make life hell of a lot easier. In fact, this is a Gig Geezer segment which I showed handling an order that was a couple of $1,000s. In fact, the items had to be taken up to the 15th floor of a building, and I probably would have wore myself out having to carry that stuff, but me putting it on a cart made the work a hell of a lot easier. So when you invest in yourself, now what you're doing also is that you're creating tax deductions. Now, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people here in the Columbia, South Carolina metropolitan area. And before I go any further, if you like the content that's been provided in this segment of the Gig Geezer or in any other segment, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. Now, as I said, I can't tell you how many times folk have asked me about, well, where you get these bags from and all, and I tell them where I get them, and then I tell them, well, look, you get these bags, you can claim them as taxes, claim this as tax deductions, and that goes right over the head. That just tells me that a lot of these folk are out here just, trying to make some spare change or do whatever they're doing, and they could care less about it. All they want is the money, and that's it. But if you're treating this as a business, this can open doors to other things. At least it may actually expanding your thinking as to how you can go about doing this gig stuff. Now, in many Gig Geezer segments, I've also talked about as a part of my process of treating this as a business is how I set expectations. Now, my expectations, I believe, are reasonable. You can call these goals, but I just call them expectations. I mean, you could set a goal, but then there's another thing to just expect to go out there and make what you make on a daily basis. And that's something that I can say that is something that I do. I go out there, yes, with the goal of making at least $200 a day. I go out there with the goal of doing it within the usual hours of 6 to 8 hours, but I expect that out of myself. And when you have certain expectations of yourself, then anything less is not acceptable. And so you're constantly in that, you're constantly having that focus, that single focus, that singular focus. You're not out there trying to make friends and all goofing off. You're out there to make money. In fact, one of my first gig geezer things I used to say is, hey, when I'm out there driving, I'm out there to make some money. I don't know any other way of doing it, man. So in short, when you know what you've got to do, you'll be more than motivated to go out there and do what you have to do. And that's what it's all about. So that's why you often hear me say this as well. When it's all said and done, it's all about what you do at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, and since we're in December, at the end of the year. Okay, now at this point, I'm pretty sure that there are people who are wondering, Geezer, why aren't you talking about mileage? Well, yeah, that's part of how you make DoorDash and all the similar apps your business. But I'm going to put it like this. First of all, I keep a running ledger of my miles that I put on my Excel spreadsheet. I do that on a daily basis. So I'm aware of my odometer readings, but I don't even actually log in odometer readings. I log into my miles on a daily basis. What I use to show parameters of odometer readings over the course of a year are my Uber and Lyft inspections. And that is something I learned from having been audited by the IRS. And when I was audited by the IRS, that was almost 20 years ago. And the examiner asked me for some type of documentation showing odometer readings. There's like, okay, we're okay with the miles, but we just need something to show your odometer readings. And so your Uber and Lyft inspection sheets serves as that documentation of odometer mile readings. Now, what else can you use for documentation? If you go and get your oil changes, they usually log in the odometer reading. If you do it every month or every other month or every 3 months, if you keep a record of your oil changes with odometer readings, that also covers you in terms of documentation. You don't have to have an app, as what some people do, although I'm not against it. Some people feel that that's very convenient, but it may not always log all the miles that you do as well. So keep that in mind. Now, the reason why I was audited by the IRS is because I'd expected money back that year. And then when they looked closely, they said that I tried to claim both miles and gas and oil and maintenance, and you can't do that. You can only claim one or the other. It's either miles or you claim your maintenance. And so that's why you often hear me say that me talking about deductions for miles, that to me is not necessary, because I know that at the end of the day, mileage is a 1099's best friend. You'll understand why I say that, because it's more than likely going to be your single largest deduction that you make as a gig driver. Now, if I were to sum things up, and by the way, if you like the content that's been provided in this segment of the Gig Geezer or in any other segment of the Gig Geezer, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. If I were to go back over everything, first of all, yes, you got to have a business person's mindset, because if you treat this as a business, you should expect to have business-like results. The next thing is, I recommend that you create a business name, be it a sole proprietorship or an LLC, registered with your state. In South Carolina, it's through the Secretary of State's office. Yes, it's an investment of money, but that's also money that that investment is something that you can claim on your taxes. From there, that puts you in a position to where you can open business checking accounts. Okay, so that you have, and I say plural checking accounts because you have money coming in. You want to account for money coming in and account for money going. Benefits of that, again, is that you can be able to distinguish the difference between your personal money and your business money, and also you would be able to be in a better position of being able to show proof of income based on those bank statements. Because also as well, when you try to do certain transactions as a self-employed person, you got to show bank statements. Okay, if in addition to maybe your 1099, your tax forms, you may have to show in upwards of 6 months of bank statements showing this money that's coming in. And the best way of being able to provide that information is having a separate business account for money coming in and money going out. The other thing that I shared is invest in yourself. Invest in the catering bags. Invest in the cup holders. Invest in a cart. Invest in whatever, flashlight for nighttime when you gotta find those addresses. That's a write-off. Things that help improve the efficiency of doing your business. Invest in yourself. Do not be afraid to invest in yourself. Lastly, I mentioned about mileage. Yeah, you can keep up with the mileage and all that stuff, but there are ways of keeping up with the mileage. Just find a way that's going to make it work for you. Lastly, know that with an LLC, if you were involved in someone trying to sue you, they can only go after the assets of the LLC and not your personal assets. And that's one of the advantages of an LLC. The next thing is that if you set up as an LLC, is that you can actually pay yourself. And so you're actually putting yourself in a position to where you can either pay yourself as a 1099 or pay yourself as a W-2. You can make yourself your own employee, which puts you in a position of tax money. But I will caution by saying consult your tax professional in doing that. But if you expand or involve in other facets of business, then you more than likely will have to do something along those lines. And so what I'm sharing in this segment of the Gig Geezer really is just to try to get your mind, get your computer to processing new information or reprocessing information. And with that, if you like the content that's been provided in this segment of the Gig Geezer or in any other segment of the Gig Geezer, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. I'm Inwood Lane, and as always, may your hustle and may your grind continue.